Disclaimer. This video details my creative process and is meant to serve as a loose guideline for those looking for inspiration or a helping hand. None of this is the end-all be-all of character creating. That in mind, please enjoy the video. Oh. Hello, single person watching. My name is Scrape. Today we're doing something, something's different. There's more than one of you here. That's, I'm not used to that, I don't know what to do. Did Chaos get his hands on the cloning machine again? Hello, multiple people watching. My name is Scrape, as I already said, and today is a very special day. Today, in collaboration with Skylander Studios, marks the start of the Skylanders Heroes of the Legends Skylanders Design Contest. A video covering the contest in detail is already up on Hallow Knight's channel, which I will link in the description and the iCard if you haven't already seen it. Over here, we're going to be going over my super secret technique of how I create my Skylanders OCs. If you've been around for a bit, you'll have noticed I've made quite a few Skylanders characters. From simple to overpowered to downright horrible. I've been around the block. And while I'm not an expert on character creation, I'm hoping this video can shed some light on my creative process, and hopefully inspire you to experiment and create your own. To simplify things, I'll be dividing this video into 3 sections: concept, brainstorming, and finalizing. While in reality, I tend to jump from step to step throughout the process, I'll be laying it out like this just so it's easier to follow, with a bit of overlap from time to time, because it can't really be helped. Step 1. Concept. The concept is the foundation for your Skylander. It can range from a vague idea of powers or personality, to a color scheme that caught your eye, to even, oh that looks cool, let's make a Skylander out of it. Your inspiration can stem from just about anything. A cool plant? Make it a Skylander. Your pet fish? Skylander. That third slice of cake you just ate which gave you a stomachache? Skylanderify it, baby! You can also totally go with a concept that's a little more concrete than cool plant or, too much cake. You could base off of your favorite myth, a creature you saw in a dream, an established species in Skylands. You can even take inspiration from other people's creations within or outside of the fandom. Just be sure to not, steal that character. Nobody likes plagiarism. Taking inspiration is completely fine, but make sure to make it your own. And of course, credit your inspirations. You could make the Skylander based off of something that means a lot to you, like a plush toy you've had since you were a kid, or perhaps your favorite holiday. All that matters is what calls to you during the creative process. What catches your eye? What do you feel like the Skylanders franchise is missing? For today's video, I'll be using my character Lunabarus as an example, because they're the most recent Skylander I've made, and their footage didn't get corrupted. I originally made them back around the days of Trap Team, loosely based off of the Greek myth of Cerberus, the 3-headed dog that guards the doors to Hades. The light and the dark elements had just been revealed, so I knew I wanted to do something with them. Needless to say, my original concept for Siberia was, well, we can definitely do better now. So that was my base concept. The Legend of Cerberus, and this janky-ass drawing I did back in the good old days of Scratch and Pokemon Art Academy. Oh, one more thing to take into consideration. If you're going to be entering your characters into the Hero of Legends contest, it's also good to take into consideration the group you'll be entering them into: Outlanders, Alpha Knights, or the Unleashed. If you can't decide which one you want to enter, good news! You can enter up to 3 Skylanders. Hallow goes over it more in his video, so if you haven't already, go check that out. I mentioned that already. I'm not going to stop shelling it out. You can't make me. Step 2. Brainstorming. Yeet! So, you've got a base concept. That's it, right? Wrong! Well, I mean it can be, but personally I like to flesh it out a bit more. Think of your base concept as the skeleton, the bare bones of the character. The planning is the muscles, the organs, all that good stuff that fluffs the character out. turning them from a basic concept, a skeleton, into a full-fledged character. Well, a character without skin. And if you're creating a skeleton, the metaphor is the same, just don't actually give your skeleton flesh. I mean, I don't... In this step, I tend to write down anything and everything that comes to mind. Now, most of this information will probably be left on the cutting room floor, but jotting down absolutely everything that comes to mind tends to help me get my creative juices flowing. I can also use those leftover ideas for possible Skylanders in the future. I find it's helpful to do this step on my drawing program and then later transfer the notes to a Google Doc, since I tend to doodle concepts along with writing them down, but use any method you deem helpful. During the planning phase, I take into consideration the elements of the Skylander, any defining features about the species they are, possible movesets or details about them, their group, like the Giants, Swap Force, Trap Team, just for some canon examples, and if there's anything necessary I need to include to make it seem like it would be actually canon, if that's what you're going for, of course. Like, Giants are big, all the Trap Team have a certain symbol on their outfits, not to mention the giant Traptanium weapons they carry around. All the senseis have gold and black color schemes for their outfits, aside from the villains. Stuff like that. I also don't necessarily try to organize things at this point, since I tend to focus too heavily on organizing, and not enough on the actual planning, which is why my good planning sheets tend to look like a clusterfuck. Getting back on track, the advice I can give to you for this part is honestly just to write down everything you think of. Go back over it, pick out the ideas you like the most, then work off of those. Sometimes you'll come up with something you like right away, other times it'll take you hours, if not days, and that's perfectly okay. Your creative process takes you however long it takes. There's no time limit to making the best Skylander you can make, unless it's for the contest. Then there's a bit of a time constraint. In the case of the Cerberus Skylander, and most of my planning sessions, I started by jotting down what I already knew. 3-headed dog, dark element, stuff like that. Then I wrote, or doodled, any ideas that came from that. A moon motif or a galaxy motif? Plain shadows? Should they be ethereal in some way? Oh, maybe each head has a different personality. They could have subtle differences too. If I go with the moon motif, each head could represent a different phase of the moon, and they can embody the personality trait that goes along with them. Maybe for a bit of added character flair, I could incorporate the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil motif. Moon frisbee. It's definitely a chaotic process for me, I won't lie. But it's honestly such fun, almost as much as the design itself. Oh, do you hear that? I think that's the sound of a Segway. Step 3. Finalizing. So, we've got the bones, the muscles, and the organs. What else do we need? Well, skin might be helpful. That might just be me. After I jot down all of my ideas, pinpoint the ones I like the most, and do a few preliminary sketches, I jump into the basic reference sheet. Standing pose, a few headshots, a color palette, and some miscellaneous information. That kind of stuff. I tend to do the written portion after I draw the stuff out, but I know some people who work the opposite way, where they do the written portion and then the drawing, or simply do one or the other. All are completely valid. I'll also be using drawing as my visual example, but it definitely doesn't need to be. 3D modeling, sculpting, cosplay, the Imaginator's creation crystals, even just the tried and true method of describing your Skylander through text are all amazing ways of showcasing your designs. I'll just be sticking to my reference sheets since I'm old-fashioned, it's what I know. If you've also got some cash, you could always commission someone to draw your OC for you. Like me! My commissions are open! Screams and broke. I have 2 types of sheets I tend to do. A beginner and a detailed. I'll only be going over the beginner one, because that's the only one I've done for Lunabarus so far. As the name describes, the beginner reference sheet is the one I tend to do first, when I'm just starting to lock in a character design. Even then, the character design can differ past this. There's no shame in that. Sometimes you find a design you like right away, other times it takes 10 or 20 tries before you get something you really like. It's all about trial and error, even at this stage. Luckily, for Lunabarus here, it only took me around 3 passes, not counting the original design and a bit of finagling of the colors during the drawing process, to get them to a point where I liked. But as an example where it wasn't so simple, I'm still working on my character to this day. But that's neither here nor there. A lot of things I tend to cover in character design can also be covered in the planning phase. I'm just putting them here to add some variety, to keep y'all on your toes. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to this process. At this point, if I don't already have a feel for the character's design, I'll tend to look up other drawings or depictions of similar characters. Like, for Lunabris, I looked up other three-headed dog concepts, mostly from Greek mythos. Along the same lines, if I don't already have a color scheme in mind, I'll look up color palettes people have already made to get my bearings. I may do 1 or 2 base sketches for the design, change it as I go along, even scrap everything I just put down and start anew if I don't like how it's turning out, like I'm doing with this script. Sometimes the process can definitely be frustrating, but it's so rewarding to see it all come together. Whereas the reference sheet covers mostly design and bits of the personality and other small details, the written reference tends to cover everything else. In a lot more detail, might I add. Similar to the 2 different reference sheets, I have 2 main formats of written bios. The first one covers the basic information that was figured out on the last stage, and serves as a more organized way of viewing it. For this, I tend to stick to the basics, like the name, the element, personality, and backstory. You can also throw things in like the age, gender, sexuality, the race of the species, the attacks or upgrade paths, even the soul gem. Though that can also start to verge into more complicated territory, which is good to venture into eventually, but it's also able to get overwhelming quite easily. I'll try to remember to link a few really good in-depth reference questionnaires in the description if you want to go use them as inspiration. They tend to go into things like the likes, the dislikes of your character, the relationships and family, and heavily specific things like favorite color, song, food, mother's maiden name, and social security number. Every single in and out of a character. Part 4. Conclusion. And I think that's about that. I'm sure there's something I'm missing because there always is. But I do believe we've come to the end. If you've made it this far, I just want to say how thankful I am. This video has definitely been a labor of love, and I couldn't be happier with it. I would also like to remind you, if you haven't already, please go check out Hallow's video on the Skylanders creation contest if you're at all interested in joining. I may be a tad biased, but I think it's definitely worth it to enter. All that aside, thank you Single Outlander for watching to the end. My name is Scrape. I actually wrote a script for once, and I'm gonna go pass out. Good night. Oh, a few other things I'm just adding quickly in the end here. This part's unscripted, aside from the notes I have from the character creation contest poster itself. But for the creation contest itself, there are a few specific details I should probably add in for those of you who are lazy and don't want to check out the video. So, you'll have until February 14th to get your designs into Hallow Knight's email, which I'll have on screen. The Skylanders cannot be sexual, racist, or offensive in any way. Gory is probably also not something. Basically, like, it's okay to have them be a bit more mature, since this game is definitely for the older audience that's part of the Skylanders fandom, but at the same time, we want to still make sure that it keeps a kind of I don't want to say the rating will be PG-13 or like teen rating. I don't know how ratings work, but like I think the most sexual character we have at the moment, at least, is gender fluid bird person. My headcanon is they're gender fluid, but so basically, I'm pretty sure implied is okay. We just don't want anything like overtly sexual. So no hanging ding-dongs or exposed chests, I guess. It should fit the feel of Skylanders. Like, you can't just take a picture of a photorealistic dog and enter it and be like, this is my Skylander rough child. He barks. Yeah. No plagiarism. And we're not accepting guest stars or if you were to enter someone else's OC without their explicit permission, of course. Like, if you're entering on someone's behalf and they've given you permission to do so, I think that's okay, but there needs to be, again, explicit permission from the creator of the OC. And of course, at least in my personal opinion, I think it's always better to enter your own OCs. Again, because it's a limit of 3 entries per person, so yeah. There's a 3 entry limit, 1 for Outlanders, 1 for Elf Knights, 1 for the Unleashed. Please don't abuse this. There's no restrictions on the species, or the gender, or the sexuality, or anything like that, so explore that stuff to your heart's content. Just make sure not to make it offensive or, like, mocking somebody else's identity by doing that. You most definitely do not have to be artistic to enter. You can enter with a drawing, but it's not required in the slightest. It can just be a written description, as long as the description goes into enough detail for an artist to render it. For the specific entrance sheet, I think you can have more than this, but the basics are you need the name, the gender, the species, the catchphrase, which is something I forgot to add to my video, because I always forget to do the catchphrase, because I'm a dum-dum. Personality, and the picture or description of the character, or both if you don't feel the picture represents them enough. And apparently, you don't need to worry about the backstory or the moveset. We can, if you don't have those set out already, because we're going to be working with the winners. Winners? There's multiple? I guess there's multiple. I think there's 1 for each. I am assuming there's 1 for each. Please don't take my word on that. Again, if you have any other questions that aren't covered in this, go over to Hallow's video or ask in the description down below. In the description, ask in the comments. Scrape. God, I'm frantic today. And if you like the art you see on screen with the Here's the Legends character creation contest poster, I shall leave all of the credits to those down below. Personally, I really like the dark and light chompies in the corner. I didn't do those. I just really like them. They're amazing. So yeah, thank you for sticking around for this final part. I'm really hoping I'm able to get this video out on time. I'm recording this like 3 days before the due date to when the contest starts, which is when we're posting it on the 24th. So I'm so sorry if this video is horribly cobbled together, but I hope you enjoyed anyway. Have a good Christmas, or Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Yuletide, winter solstice. Gonna go now, bye.